This is Mike Spagnola, President and CEO of SEMA, and this is Cars and Culture with Jason Stein.
If there's one must-attend show in North America that drips with car culture, it's SEMA. All the fun under one roof, massive, remarkable, loud, incredible, and you're the steward of all of this. Mike, welcome to the program.
Thank you. No, it's some pretty big shoes to fill, and especially as seriously as I take the automotive industry.
And you do take it seriously, and we're going to get into some of your own history, going back to those auto shop days in high school or wrenching on Datsuns. But I want to talk about the show in general. The inaugural SEMA show, unbelievably, held at Dodger Stadium in LA in 1967. And to think about Dodge from the field at Dodger Stadium to basically taking over Las Vegas. I don't know if there are many shows that are bigger in Las Vegas. If there are, we probably can't talk about it on the program because they're of a certain ilk. But it's got to be remarkable to you.
It's just amazing. I mean, and to be in this industry for over 40 years, to grow up and even, having the desire to even get to go to the SEMA show and walk on the floor of it and being part of it. And then to, at one point, having a booth in the show, all of that, and to see it grow and grow and grow, and more people be part of it, be part of the culture. It's I pinch myself daily just to know that I can even be a piece of this. I don't take it for granted at all. It's just an amazing company. It's an amazing show, and we find our own ilk. We find our own people there. We find it's back to home week. It's cheers where everybody knows your name and it's family, and it's all those sorts of things. And even competitors can talk and get together and get along, and because we all celebrate this car culture.
The car culture that I think during the last couple of years got even stronger. And we've had other guests on this program talk about that, and the fact that if you were kept to your home base during COVID, you looked to your garage and you wondered how you could probably fix what was in that garage, because what a great at-home project. But I know it extends beyond that. But would you concur that during the last couple of years, car culture has been, strengthened in a way?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly our industry has grown, and it's grown tremendously over the last couple of years. I have two sons that are in the business. Their personal stories are that their business grew by several 100% over that time. When people were home, they did work on their cars. They finally got those projects out that they all wanted to work on, whether they were brand new vehicles or old vehicles that they wanted to restore. And there was an amazing increase in business because of it. And then after that, now when people can finally get out, the car shows, that because they now show off their products, their builds, the car show scene has just exploded.
And it has no signs of stopping. I mean, as the price of new vehicles continues to soar, as new vehicles become even harder to obtain, folks have turned to the used cars that they have, and in a very similar way, thought about the modifications that they could make. I'm guessing with chip shortage, if we talk about present day, with chip shortages being what they are, I don't see that changing.
No, I think the average age of a vehicle now is 11 years. And so, of course, when we were young, you had to buy a used car because that's all you could afford.
Right.
You fix it up one part at a time. But, now as that demographic ages out, of course, you've got the guys that always wanted the 69 Camaro or Mustang or whatever it might be that are doing those restorations or resto mods, or, the resto mod market is now bigger than ever. So you get that. The Japanese car culture is bigger than ever. And then if you get into the newer markets, overlanding, off-roading, big areas of expansion. And of course, now EV conversion, in other areas. So the market just continues to grow and expand. And, there's the old saying, this isn't my father's Oldsmobile. Well, the next generation wants to do things differently in just about everything.
And the next generation will have much to deal with, especially as it relates to internal combustion engine vehicles. And of course, some of the latest news coming out of California, where you work on a regular basis, is the fact that new internal combustion engine car sales will effectively be banned by 2035, which I'm guessing is going to put a lot more emphasis on the ones that are already out there. These will be the vehicles that people hang on to, right, Mike?
Right, for sure. So, a couple things is we're concerned that the infrastructure will be around and available by 2035. But that is what the current standing is. And of course, again, the ability to modify and restore, there's still a huge car park that's going to go on for a lot more years. So in ICE engines. And so we don't see that slowing down. We see that continuing to grow for a number of years. But again, the other market that's starting to expand is this ability to take you name the older vehicle and convert it to an EV. And we are actually going to expand on that at the SEMA Show this year.
So let's talk about that. What will we see there, and what is the trend?
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of new companies pop up. It used to be that if you wanted to take you name it, older vehicle and change it into an EV, you found a wrecked Tesla, you went to the junkyard, you found the parts, and you converted your vehicle into an EV using Tesla parts. That's starting to change. We're starting to see battery manufacturers. We're starting to see motor manufacturers, harnesses, controls, all those sort of components come together. And there's just like, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, all these widget makers that kind of created our industry. That's happening in the EV world. And so we're going to foster that. We're going to, we've just hired a guy to do nothing but foster that market for us and find those little widget makers that are kind of moving into this EV world and bring them together at the SEMA Show in a few areas. Of course, we're going to have this EV section that'll, it'll be the brand new EVs that have come out, whether that's the Mach-E or whether that's the Lightning or, you name the OE that's putting out an EV. So we'll have that piece of the market because those cars will still be modified. You're still going to see body kits. You're still going to see interior accessories. You're still going to see various accessories, tires and wheels. So those brand new vehicles will be modified and personalized. The industry is still about personalization. But on top of that, this ability to take older vehicles and convert them is going to continue to grow. We see it as an expanding market. And over the next several years, we think that that'll start to become central hall where all the performance parts are now. I mean, we're looking a long way out for that, but for sure, those guys are coming together. The other piece of that is that as they build these components, we're going to want to work with customizers so they know how to install these components and both safely and what the parts are you need to put these vehicles together. So we're excited about that. We have I met a 13-year-old young lady who has a Porsche 914, and her goal was to convert it to an EV. And she's going to be featured at the SEMA Show. So she's bringing her Porsche. It won't be done, but she tells a great story about why she's doing it and the excitement about it and what she's learning along the way. So that next generation that, again, wants to modify vehicles a different way, it continues to look like that.
Which shoots a hole in the whole theory that young people aren't interested in vehicles in general.
Yeah, I don't see it. I know that comes out. I know it's a popular opinion. I know that we've shut down, auto shops across the nation, but I don't know. I don't know if it's just something in each one of us that we all have these God-given talents and gifts and desires. But boy, I still see the young and culture market. I mean, go to a Formula Drift event. They're there. They're go to car shows. They're still there.
Go to Cars and Coffee.
Yeah, go to Cars and Coffee. They're still, some of them take up old school, again, 69 Camaros, and some of them take up the latest Japanese car or European car of any ilk. But they're still customizing. They're still out there. I see it.
Who's the 13-year-old?
It's a young lady by the name of Frances Furman, and she has a site called Tinker Engineering. And she's put some YouTube videos up. She's amazing. And what a personality. I happen to be in my hometown. I happened to be out on a walk, and it was on Earth Day. And my wife and I will do that on Saturdays. We go out for these walks. And I see this 914 up on the lawn during Earth Day. And of course, I had to walk over to it because it was a car. And I met this young lady and heard her story. And it was just fantastic. So she's actually already come here to the SEMA garage. We showed her how to scan the vehicle. We got all that CAD data, and then we're working with manufacturers now with her so that we can find the bits and components to go into the car.
Amazing. We've had Amelia Hartford on this program, who, of course, is well known in many circles and continues to increase in popularity. Samantha Tan is a young female racer based out of Canada with a Chinese heritage.
Right.
I'm with you. I think that and of course experiences at Pebble Beach recently.
Right.
The young folks are interested, and interestingly, they have this desire to really get into the EV craze. So all of us hanging on to our gasoline powered
Right.
vehicles, we don't stand a chance. I mean, there's a much larger demographic that's moving through that thinks EVs are tremendously cool, and that'll be shown on your show floor.
Yeah, for sure. And then even in the younger population, you'll see where they're doing, Japanese vehicles, but then with engine swaps, right? They're putting different twin cam turbo motors into earlier Japanese cars. A lot of conversions. I was at Woodward this last weekend, and I can't tell you how many 240 SXs I saw with LS swaps.
Yeah.
That's all happening.
You are embracing the electric car market wholeheartedly. And I know when we think back to your own history, it's probably not something you could have ever imagined. I mean, I referenced it at the beginning, but out of high school, you worked at a Datsun dealership in the parts department. You were a wannabe racer, right?
I was. It actually, started much earlier than that. Growing up in the 60s, my the older kids that came home from Vietnam had a few bucks in their pocket. And so, on my own street alone, they were buying Mustangs and Camaros and Corvettes. And I can remember running out to the curb of the street and hearing them go by and watching them go by, and even just the smell. And, I was just excited about it. And then luckily I had a brother-in-law that was had an import car center and was a SCCA racer. So he took me around when I was 10 or 11 to races. The neighborhood dads, kind of shouldered me in, and as they worked on their vehicles, and it was just an exciting time. In high school, Mickey Thompson had gone to my high school and came back and talked to my high school auto shop class, and he actually had a $200 scholarship that I won and to go on to college. So he was a mentor to me. So I just had all of that around me. Of course, I already had that passion. But then coming out of high school, I went to work at a Datsun dealership as a delivery driver. I wanted to race Datsuns, 510s and 240Zs and Datsun Roadsters at the time. But that's where I started my career, and as that delivery driver.
And you did want to spend more time on the track, but obviously moved on to other things, more in the business front than anything else. What was that transformation like?
Yeah, so spent some time in the import car parts business, a large major chain of import parts stores across America. As I was racing, for me, that was a little bit of getting discount on parts so I could continue to fuel my racing desire. Got a chance to run some Formula Continental, Formula Atlantic stuff over the time, but and then transitioned as this import car parts store. I moved up the ranks into their management team, into a vice presidency, and then stepped out on my own in 1988 to run my first business, and kind of took that chance. And then over the years, bought and sold 5 companies, ran a few companies, ran some large, both in the accessory and parts business, but also in the just aftermarket replacement parts, alternator starter company, that sort of thing, and kind of honed my skills there.
You are obviously aware of what SEMA was. Did you attend as a young man?
I was. This will be my 42nd year at the SEMA Show. So,
wow.
So yeah, it was 1979 was my first show. Of course, we didn't have one in 2000. So, 2020. So, this will be 42nd year for me.
Wow. What were your first memories? SEMA Show, it had moved to Las Vegas in 1976.
Right.
You must have been overwhelmed like anybody else is who goes to SEMA.
I was. To me, it was, I didn't even quite get it. I think I was just so overwhelmed and trying to understand everything and trying to understand why everybody was there. And, I didn't understand quite yet if it was a B2B show, which it is, it's a consumer, all these different parts. And then, to not only see the Edelbrock booth, but to know that Vic Elderbrock was in that booth. Of course, I was too scared to go up to him and introduce myself, but to see Iski, to see all these names and people that you had read about in magazines and heard about, and even used some of their parts and all those sorts of things to get to experience that. It was just overwhelming. It was, I guess to a lot of people, if you're, if you love rock music or any sort of music, and you get to meet your favorite musicians or your favorite actor, or even see him from a glance, but are afraid to walk up to him. Yeah, that was it for me, to be able to see those things and experience those things and walk around the show. And, I think I even, because I was there on a business purpose, I almost felt like I was cheating the company, because I got to see things and experience things that, why would the company send me here? This is too fun. This is overwhelming to me to, even be part of this, or even to be considered, this young guy coming in and be a part of that scene.
Share with me some of the sheer numbers surrounding SEMA. I know they're interesting and they're jaw-dropping. The number of exhibitors, the countries that they come from, the countries from which attendees come to see the show, the miles of aisles of performance stuff, tire companies, cars on display, the economic impact. This will amaze and probably confound the listener.
No, it's about 1 million square feet of exhibit space. We take up all of the Las Vegas Convention Center, every building, every floor. That spreads into the hotels. This year we're at over 1,800 exhibitors. Wow. Around 160,000 people show up from about 80 different countries. Now, we are still shut down, in some of the countries, but the countries that can be there will be there. 3,000 different media outlets show up. It's besides obviously being car week, if you like, for us in the industry, and old home week for all those that have been in this industry, it's a close-knit industry, even with those 180, 160,000 people. But the business aspect of it is just amazing. We take up every hotel in the neighborhood, every taxi line, every restaurant. People are booking out the restaurant events already.
Wow, incredible. And it's still only a trade show. It's not open to the public, even though every 15-year-old who loves cars would give everything to be there. Is there a thought at all to opening it up to consumers, or is that just too much liability?
No, it's moving in that direction. And it's, over the years, we've kept pulling our members. I mean, SEMA is owned by its members. And there was a time when everybody wanted to keep it business to business. And there's still that piece of the business where it's a business to business event. And then as we continue to poll, it becomes more and more that some of our members want to see consumer. So we're straddling that fence now. We're working through that right now. But currently, the show is business to business Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. On Friday this year, we're opening it up to 10,000 consumers who will be able to come in.
Oh, there we go. A first foray.
Yeah, first foray. So we're testing that market. Those people can come to the show during the day. And then Friday night, we have SEMA Ignited, which is open to the public for everybody. And that was an organic thing that happened. As the SEMA show grew and more show cars showed up, it was the first time for these show cars to be seen, on the show floors. So everything from brand new vehicles that were customized to the OEs that brought feature vehicles. And then as these builders brought vehicles, they were all over 1,000 vehicles inside the floor of the show. But on Friday night, they would pull out of the show and into their trailers. Well, people started lining up in the streets to watch. These consumers would set up their lawn chairs starting at about 2 p.m. on Friday, and watching these vehicles roll out at, starting at 4 p.m. all through the night as they loaded up into their trailers. So we decided to make it about 10 years ago, make it a parade and actually have an event where we paraded out. And then we expanded that to what's called SEMA Ignited, where we have a large piece of property that we take up, and we have Formula Drift, of course, food, different events going on, and a full car show. And that attracts about 20,000 people.
Organically. It's crazy. I mean, it's like exotics on Broadway in the Monterey Peninsula. It's right. All of a sudden people started parking their their specialty vehicles down by the water, and you had crowds upon crowds, so the point that they had to actually organize it.
Yeah, so that's what's happened, and we're looking at expanding that. We are looking at maybe for 2023 continuing to expand that opportunity, maybe roll into the weekend, and so that's under discussion now. We hope to have an announcement about it soon.
Yeah, wonderful. SEMA has always been a bellwether for trends. It was there where I saw one of the first cars wrapped with a dull finish, a film almost. And now that's a thing. I mean, manufacturers just come out with that as a factory option. What's the timeline for seeing those kinds of trends get into consumer hands? Is it instantaneous?
It's pretty quick. You know, the OEs show up for a couple of reasons: to show off their new goods, but there's no doubt that they're walking the show to see what the trends are, what's happening. In my previous life, I had a manufacturing company that did styling products, and we did some work for the OEs, but we would always show up with a vehicle or two at the SEMA show, and they would gather around to see what we were doing, what the trends were, and some of those products would show up. I know that, you know, I don't take credit for a lot of things, but I know I made the first cover that went over a trailer hitch on an SUV. So you can see the trailer hitch that kind of covered up and went seamless with the bumper. I did that product. A lot of the OEs came over and looked at it, and sure enough, the next year it was an accessory on some of the OE SUVs. So, you know, we see that. We know that we put monitors and TVs in vehicles before the OEs did. You know, all those sorts of things happened organically at the SEMA show. Colors, models, options. You know, SEMA show was probably the first to put out 20-inch wheels, and then the factories picked those up later on. So definitely, with all that innovation, with all the you know, SEMA's about 7,000 different members, about 3,500 manufacturers. A lot of them small widget makers, under $5 million business. But you know, they start in their garage. They start as a passion. They develop a business, but they come up with these great little ideas, and then take them to market.
In a way, it's a bit of a launching pad for innovation, isn't it? Whether it is that small company or a larger, more established business that already knows the direction that it wants to go and has maybe sold some products. But boy, if you make it to the SEMA show floor with your product and then you make it, it's got to be just a dynamic experience. It
is. We have several stories like that. One of my own companies, you know, started there and grew and was successful because we were able to launch product there at the SEMA show. So, you know, that's a common story. We actually have a program now called Launchpad, where we start with about 50 guys that have an idea, and bring it to us, and we interview those people. Then we bring it down to 10, then we bring it down to 5, and then we announce the winner. So we actually do that. We film it, and we announce the winner at the SEMA show for the best new product. And then that winner gets a variety of things to help him, about $100,000 worth of prizes that helps him launch his business.
Wow, amazing. Does SEMA have an active manufacturer board in order to discuss trends that are coming? And if so, how often do they meet? And when do you learn of new technology and trends that are coming your way?
So we don't officially have a manufacturing board. We do have a board of directors made up of manufacturers and retailers and market people. And so we meet about 5 times a year and talk about the business. And of course, the board would like updates from the staff. And, you know, we walk through all those sorts of things. You know, everything from what's going on from a legislative side to what's going on at the show to what's going on in our business. You know, we talk about this is what we do the other 360 days a year. Of course, the show is big, but
right.
You know, we have several different businesses. We have the SEMA Garage. We have a SEMA Data, which is our software program division. We have a council network. You know, we have different groups that, you know, we have a SEMA Business Women's Network. We have a truck network. We have all these different councils that move around. So those are things we do the other 360 days a year. But from a manufacturing standpoint, a lot of that happens right in the SEMA Garage, which is a product development center, and where manufacturers can come in and we work with them to develop products to take to market.
You mentioned the SEMA Garage, so let's talk about your latest news. And in late August, you opened up the SEMA Garage in Detroit, 45,000 square foot facility, representing really another significant milestone for the aftermarket industry, and the first ever research facility dedicated to testing and understanding how the aftermarket side of the business is impacted and can work with advanced driver assistance systems. Tell me about the development of the Detroit SEMA Garage.
Yeah, pretty exciting. It actually started here in California 9 years ago in Diamond Bar, and what I was brought on for was I had just left my last business, and I've spent my whole life in product development and design and working with the OEs. So I was asked to come on to create the SEMA Garage here in Southern California, and to help other manufacturers in product development and working alongside the OEs, all those sorts of things. So we developed the garage here in California, 15,000 square foot facility. We put in an emissions lab because our manufacturers were having trouble with compliance, carbon, EPA compliance, and getting through the what you have to do to, if you develop a product that affects fuel or air, it has to go through a test to make sure it doesn't pollute, right, more than a standard. And so our manufacturers were having trouble complying with that. They couldn't find lab time. They didn't understand how to do the paperwork, get through all the compliance. They were finding that it took up to 2 years to get through the CARB network and to get an EO. So we developed the SEMA Garage here with a lab dedicated to our SEMA members. We have a staff that does nothing but fill out the paperwork for them, walk them through the process and all that. That lab now runs 2 shifts because we can't keep up with the demand. Then we put a product development center in, an actual garage, where we work with members on CAD data. We get CAD data from the OEs, but we also create CAD data by reverse engineering and scanning. So we do that in the garage as new vehicles come out. For example, we had the Ford Bronco 6 months before it hit the market. So we brought manufacturers into the garage with this Bronco. We tore it apart, we measured, we scanned, we worked with manufacturers in developing those products, 3D printed the products for them. All those sorts of product development things that have to go on. We work with manufacturers in the garage to do that. We have a training room. And so all that was going on here, very successful. So we knew we needed to expand, and we needed to have more resources available. What better place than in Detroit? Yeah. So this was, for me, was a build it will they come, a field of dreams. And we started almost 4 years ago to start to look for a property and look around, the Michigan area to understand where we wanted that to be. But we knew we wanted to do 2 things. We wanted to be near the OEs because we're going to need to work with them on developing as more technologies come on. We're going to have to work together. And then the other resources that are there, the tier 1 suppliers that are there. I think there's something like 180,000 engineers in the Michigan area. So, and what better place to be than the car culture of the world?
Right. Exactly.
Right. Well, so COVID slowed us down a bit, but about 18 months ago, we were able to find a building in Plymouth, Michigan, 45,000 square foot facility. It was in pretty bad disrepair, but we were able to buy it right and started on this journey where we did quite a bit of work to the building itself, and then added another emissions lab, state-of-the-art emissions lab. And of course, that equipment alone takes about a year to get, and very expensive. But because we needed more ability to test for emissions and help our manufacturers, we did that. We put in a dyno room up to 2,500 horsepower, all-wheel drive dyno room, and all temperature controlled. We put in a 5,000 square foot garage, 4 bays, alignment racks, all of that, so we can continue to do this product development. But the exciting part, and then a training room as well, offices, all of that. The exciting thing is that we added this ADAS center, which is probably the next frontier for us. And that is that when you modify a vehicle, you of course have forward-facing cameras, side cameras, rear cameras, lane change departure warning, self-braking, all those sorts of systems. We want to better understand what happens when you lift a vehicle or lower a vehicle. How do those systems work? What do they do? And so we work with the collision industry because, of course, if you have these features on your vehicle and the vehicle does still get into a wreck, you need to know how to recalibrate all those systems. And we worked alongside that collision industry to understand kind of what resources you need, what kind of room do you need. Each of these rooms, we have 2 of them in our center, are 2,500 square feet each. They have a certain floor color, they have a certain wall color, they have a certain lighting. The floors themselves, we had to re-pour the floors because they have to be within 1 degree angle. And so, very straight floors, all of that, we poured a lot of money into this ADAS center. And then now we can bring vehicles in and we can understand what those systems do stock. We can then lift let's just say it's a truck, we can put a level kit on it. We can test how that works. We can put a 3-inch lift. We can put different size tires and wheels. So we're doing all this sort of research from a static standpoint in these labs where we can understand what's going on. Then we're taking it one step further. We're also doing dynamic testing. So we're literally going out to test tracks. And you probably have seen before where on some of these new vehicles where you can run the car down a track and then a balloon person walks in front of it and makes sure the car will stop. Well, we're doing that testing as well. And those are very expensive tests, but we're doing both static and dynamic testing to understand what happens and to those vehicles when they're modified. So first of its kind, we bought quite a bit of equipment. We bought both the OE equipment for this testing because we wanted to understand what happens with the OE equipment. And then we also bought aftermarket test equipment so that we could compare aftermarket to OE to see if there's any differences and do a complete research center. So really excited about it. We've brought in people that are engineers from the ADAS world, some of the component suppliers, Bosch and some of the other component suppliers. We've hired some of those people out to help us. We're looking to work alongside the OEs on this research and then put out best practices. Here are the things that you need to do when you modify a vehicle, and here's the test program and the protocol, and to be able to help our industry so that it continues to be able to modify with confidence.
Well, and you mentioned modifications, and of course, advanced driver assistance systems all leads to a day that was, has been talked about, a movement towards autonomous vehicles.
Sure.
Where's the modification tuner world in an autonomous space?
It's funny. There's already aftermarket guys that are developing those sort of products. Again, you can modify your '69 Camaro to have lane change departure warning. So, those components are coming out and be able to adapt to any vehicle that doesn't have those sort of products. But the full autonomous thing's still years away. I mean, it's still a ways away, but we'll find ways to continue to work with it. I mean, even though they may be autonomous, you'll be able to continue to modify in some ways, in some shapes. I'm convinced of it. I looked at I actually did a speech some time back where the topic was, does the industry have 5 more years? And I pulled up an article that talked about government regulations, talked about technology. It talked about all the things facing the aftermarket. And as I did my speech and I talked about this article, at the end of the speech, I said, this article is from 1973. And so, these are the things we worried about in 1973 that we still talk about, today. So,
it's true.
There's innovation. When there's innovation, we continue to find ways. I'm convinced of that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. What does the world look like for SEMA in the next 10 to 15 years? If we were to sit and have this interview, Mike, and it's and we're edging toward, let's call it 2040. What is SEMA? What's your crystal ball say?
Yeah, great question. We wrestle with this all the time, but
I bet you do.
I think people will continue to find ways to modify. No matter what the OE does, they have to build a vehicle that is kind of a plain vanilla standard. It's in the middle somewhere, right? For example, they can't put all the accessories on that people may want. People are still going to want to be different and to be personal on their vehicles. So, there'll still be need for accessories. There'll still be need for personalization. There'll still be need, whether it's a bicycle rack or whether it's a set of running boards or whether it's a set of different wheels, people are still going to want to individualize or do something, for example, the overland market. I mean, nobody saw the overland market 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's huge now because people want to personalize their vehicle and get out into the campland area and have a tent that goes on the roof of the vehicle, or have all those different things that happen with camping and overlanding. And then even that started with, let's say, a Jeep or a truck. Now it's moving into the crossover vehicles. And so, I don't think anybody saw that 4 years ago or 3 years ago. We're seeing kind of the rally market come back, and people customizing their vehicles to look like a rally car. I mean, rally's never been that popular in the US, but it's coming around. Formula drift, all those sort of things that happen, I think continue into 2040. It may be with EVs. There may be, people that want to go back to 2022 and modify a Mustang that they found in a barn. So I don't think any of that goes away. It continues. Again, the EV market's going to be there. I think there's going to be alternative fuels as well. I'm not giving up on the fact that there's alternative fuels being developed and coming out, biofuels, and all the oil companies are working on different propulsion systems. And so I don't think it's an all EV world. I think in 2040, hydrogen, I think, still has some opportunity. We are looking at, there are people developing hydrogen for ICE engines, for engines still with pistons and camshafts and all those sorts of things. So certainly fuels will be different, propulsion will be different, customization will continue on.
Well, and certainly it is just a propulsion system. When we talk about EVs, it is not a complete reinvention of the automobile, and tuners will continue to tune, in my opinion.
Right. And again, the infrastructure still isn't all there as much as we want it to be. On the East Coast, coal is still producing electricity, so I'm not sure that an EV ever gets that much cleaner. And we still haven't addressed the recycle of batteries and all those sorts of things that happen with EV. There's a lot of reports about the infrastructure it's going to take to be able to charge 2 or 3 vehicles in one night in your driveway. There's a lot to be done yet. It's coming, but it's going to take some time.
Do you look at other markets to see trends as well? And if so, what are you seeing?
It's funny. We do some of that in my own business, because I was in the styling business for quite a while. I would look at trends in jewelry. When rose jewelry became popular, I would look at those colors. I would look at fashion in the home industry and understand what fabrics were being used, what colors were being used, those sorts of things. So that goes on. I think we look to the OEs, and the OEs look to us. We do look at it depends on the product. Of course, styling, I think you can look around anywhere and see trends. It's a little bit like the fashion industry, right? I don't know that there's anything new in the fashion industry. Things, bell bottoms come back, all those sorts of things come around. But yeah, we look forward. We look in the EV markets. Of course, we look at other propulsion markets. We look to see what the government's doing. We have an office in DC that constantly, literally every day, looks at what bills are coming forth and what things are coming forward, and what's the next attack that's approaching us, really, honestly.
With the advent of social media and TikTok and other various forms of instant communication, it must be hard to keep up.
Oh, it's extremely difficult. I try not to look at too much social media because it can absorb you. I try not to look at too many car sites because I'll buy too many things. But we have a whole media team, and we have a social media team. We have a whole marketing team. On the bottom floor of the headquarters here in Diamond Bar is all just marketing and research people. So we look at, we put our own research reports out, but we have market trends. We meet every week on those subjects, and just to understand what's going on, and even what people are saying about, different markets and what's going on. And we pay attention to all those sorts of things. We pay attention to street takeovers on when people are racing through the streets. We're obviously not an advocate of that. We pay attention to when, rolling coal and diesel vehicles, is what's going on in that area, because it gives us all a black eye, and what we can do to make sure that our members are aware of these things and what's going on, and where the landmines can be, and what we can do to make sure that we continue to develop products that kind of stay out of the news and those sorts of things. So, big advocate to make sure that we're racing at racetracks, that we're making sure that we can still develop products that produce power that aren't polluting the atmosphere, like a rolling coal diesel can do, that sort of thing. Our PRI is our performance racing industry division, and of course, big advocates of racing again on the tracks. Our RPM Act right now is big for us, where we have a bill before Congress that will allow us to continue to convert street cars to race cars, because the EPA has come out and said, it's illegal. And we're working on a bipartisan support to get that bill through. Those are all things that consume us, again, the other 360 days of the year.
And how about your own personal garage? You're a long way from the Datsun dealership and the parts department or the import parts business that you were a part of, but are you wrenching? If so, what are you wrenching on? What's in your garage, Mike?
I don't have as much time as I used to, but my eyes are always bigger than my stomach. So I have several vehicles that are in disrepair, I guess. But still an avid car collector. I'm blessed that both of my sons, I have 3 kids, 2 boys and a daughter. And, my daughter is a teacher and stay-at-home mom, but my 2 boys are in the automotive industry. And so we collect cars together and share on those sorts of things. I do still have a pretty good Datsun collection. I have, 240Zs and 510s and Datsun Roadsters. I'm currently restoring a 67 2-liter Datsun Roadster Solex model, which there was only about 500 ever made. I think my serial number's in the 260s. And so that's a full frame off restoration. I've got a 55 Chevy truck that one of these days I'm going to get to. I've got several cars, and then I've got a Aston Martin Vantage that I enjoy on the weekends. I just ordered the new 23Z, Nissan Z.
I was just going to ask you what you thought of the new Z. We had Alfonso Albaiza, the head of global design for Nissan, on the program recently, and we actually took a spin in his car around his Miami neighborhood. What do you think?
I love it. I absolutely love the car. It's it's a 400 horsepower car. I happen to know they're already pushing them up to about 500 horse, because there's that motor comes out of another vehicle, so there's product available for it. Mine's sitting in the port, and I literally bother the dealership every day. Send me a picture of it in the port, and so
we'll ask Alfonso for you.
Yeah, it's and I know some of the guys at Nissan, so I try not to bug them too much, but I'm just foaming at the mouth. Can't wait to get it here and get it out. So I'm excited about it.
Wonderful. Let me ask you
a stick, by the way. I had to get a manual transmission. So
of course you did. Yeah, it's wonderful that they have it in there. They actually at one point talked about having only manuals, which I said to him, he's going to have to retrain the entire population then.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So yeah, still wrench when I can. We do some wrenching here in the garage. We do a lot of projects with students. We'll build vehicles with some students or different organizations, and then often we take those to Barrett Jackson or bring a trailer to one of those auction houses and sell them for charity. So I still try to, get my up to my elbows in grease whenever I can.
I love it. One final thing. Explain SEMA in a couple of sentences to someone who's never been or who may want to be one of the 10,000 to get in the door on the Friday.
It is an overload of every sensory part of your body of vehicles. It is, where do I start? It is brand new
question.
The new Z will be there this year. Obviously, we'll see Mustangs and Camaros, and Dodge has got some surprises for us that we're going to unveil at the show. We're going to have donks. We're going to have lowriders. We're going to have tuner import cars. You're going to see everybody from eBay there to Shell Oil to every small manufacturer to OEs, every piece of the car culture, Jeeps, Broncos, overlanding, lowriders, muscle cars, EV, You'll see, people bringing exotic import vehicles. I mean, you'll see race cars there, you'll see dragsters there, you'll see NASCAR guys there. You'll see every piece of racing there. You'll see Formula Drift out front. We'll do motorcycle exhibits at times. Guys with boats show up with hot motors in them. It is every part of the automotive car culture you can think of, with every design you can think of. And I can even tell you, my wife and I'll walk the show floor once in a while, and I'll get a poke in the ribs of, why didn't you think of that? That happens because it's just overload. It's actors show up, movie stars show up, sports celebrities show up. All those people show up and just want to be part of the culture, part of what's going on, and hang out. The presidents of OE show up, and the young 20-year-old that's got some new idea and widget, he's taken a chance and he's bought a booth and he spent his couple grand to be there and to try to show off his product. Software people show up, that have anything to do with the automotive culture. So it's I know that's probably a little more than a few sentences, but yeah. I don't know any other way to. And then just the buzz, and just the buzz, just the excitement. It goes from the doors open at 9 a.m. and you can hit the clubs at 2 in the morning, and people are still out and talking and showing off cars, and it doesn't end. So
it is the epicenter of cars and culture, an explosion of the senses. November 1st to the 4th in Las Vegas. Get your hotel rooms or dinner reservations yesterday.
Yes.
Mike, thank you so much for being on Cars and Culture and for describing the culture of what is one of the biggest cultural, I think, the bastion of car culture in America.
So great to be with you, and thanks for taking the time to interview me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.